A pleasant day to each and everyone. We are the Group 5 from Grade 12 Ayala, and we are here to discuss our research entitled Financial Literacy and Spending Habits of the Students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School, school year 2022 to 2023, with the proponents, myself, Chriselle Loyola, and the members Cyril De Guia, Jasmine Colabong, Johan Macalinaw, Clarence Mendoza, and Stephen Martiliano. To start, here are the parts that we will discuss in the Chapter 1 Introduction. Here is the background of the study. Everyone around the world is involved with money. With their day-to-day life experiences, people use money to transact. According to Investopedia 2022, financial literacy refers to the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. It is the foundation of your relationship with money. However, the Philippines is considered as one of the countries that is not familiar with financial literacy. Only 25% of the Filipino population were able to answer financial literacy questions in surveys, and the Philippines ranked bottom 30 out of 144 countries in the S&P Rating Services Global Financial Literacy Survey. Students are also one of the people who cover a high percentage of financial illiteracy. In terms of senior high school students, as their compulsory education draws to a close, they will soon be making decisions that will have a big impact on their adult lives, such as whether to continue their study or enter the workforce. Any decision they will make will also have financial repercussions. On the other hand, how students handle their money pertains to their spending habits. The Philippines, like India, is a developing country where the spending power of the adults and even the young people is increasing. As cited in the paper of Adriani and Nugraha 2018, spending habit is further divided into three indicators: the planning concept, savings, and the purchasing of essential goods. As a result, the researchers decided to investigate the relationship of the financial literacy of the students, specifically Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School students, to their spending habits. Moving on to the theoretical framework of the study. The study considered the theory of planned behavior by Asgen 1991 as cited by Ang et al. 2020, which explains that people perform several behaviors because they intend to do so. The intention can be determined by three important factors, which are attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavior control. Furthermore, the study also considered the financial socialization theory by Daines 1994 as cited by Notrif 2018, which is the process of acquiring and developing attitudes, standards, norms, knowledge, and behaviors that contribute to an individual's financial viability and well-being. Shown on the screen is the conceptual framework of the study. The figure shows the conceptual framework of the study wherein the focus of the study is to find out the relationship between financial literacy and the spending habits of Angelo Leopardo Loyola Senior High School students. After finding out the financial literacy and the spending habits of the students through the use of 4-point Likert scale, the researchers determined the statistical results using the weighted mean and person correlation coefficient in order to assess the correlation between the two independent variables. On the other hand, Kruskal-Wallis H and Mann-Whitney DU tests were used to measure the statistical difference between the socio-demographic factors of age, sex, and weekly allowance to the financial literacy and the spending habits of the students.
For the statement of the problem, this research aimed to determine the relationship between the financial literacy and spending habits of the students in Angelo Levardo Loyola Senior High School. Specifically, it sought to answer the following questions. 1. Demographic profile. A. Age. B. Sex. C. Weekly allowance. 2. What is the financial literacy of the students in Angelo Levardo Loyola Senior High School? 3. What are the spending habits of the students in Angelo Levardo Loyola Senior High School? 4. What is the significant difference between the variables in terms of age? A. Financial literacy. B. Spending habits. 5. What is the significant difference between the variables in terms of sex? A. Financial literacy. B. Spending habits. 6. What is the significant difference between the variables in terms of weekly allowance? A. Financial literacy. B. Spending habits. 7. What is the relationship between financial literacy and spending habits of the students in Angelo Levardo Loyola Senior High School? For the hypothesis, 1. There is no distinct demographic profile of the students in Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School in terms of A. Age, B. Sex, C. Weekly allowance. 2. There is no relevant financial literacy among students in Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School. 3. There are no relevant spending habits of the students in Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School. 4. In terms of age, there is no significant difference between the variables A. Financial literacy, B. Spending habits. 5. In terms of sex, there is no significant difference between the variables A. Financial literacy, B. Spending habits. 6. In terms of weekly allowance, there is no significant difference between the variables A. Financial literacy, B. Spending habits. 7. There is no significant relationship between financial literacy and the spending habits of the students in Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School.
Now, for the scope and the limitation, this study aimed to determine the correlation between financial literacy and spending habits of the students. The target respondents were students from Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School. According to Burke and Gall 1979, as cited in the list 2010, a total of 100 respondents were needed to obtain credible results. As all students from Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School were eligible to take the survey, stratified random sampling was used to determine the respondents. This sampling method was used to ensure that the data could be generalized as the overall response of the students at the school. The data was gathered using a survey, specifically Google Forms, for faster data collection. The researchers finished the data collection process in 1 week. On the other hand, the study excluded factors other than sex, age, weekly allowance, financial literacy, and spending habits. Furthermore, the researchers did not collect data outside of Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School. The study's participants were only all students in grades 11 and 12. Lastly, when analyzing the results, the participants' personal perspectives and prejudices were not taken into account. Moving on to the significance of the study, it will be beneficial to the following. First is students, second is teachers, third is parents, fourth is Philippine economy, fifth is researchers, and finally, future researchers.
Moving on to the methodology of the study, the following will be discussed.
And for the research design, the researchers utilized the descriptive correlational research design because this study aimed to determine the relationship between the financial literacy of the students to their spending habits. According to McBurney and White 2009, as cited by Massaro et al. 2016, descriptive correlational design is used in research studies that aim to provide static pictures of situations as well as establish the relationship between different variables. The goal of the study was to find out whether financial literacy and spending habits of the students have a positive or negative relationship. For population of the study focused on the financial literacy and spending habits of Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School students only. All 2,215 students of ALSH were eligible respondents of this research. However, only a certain numbers of samples was randomly selected to represent the whole population. It involved a total of 100 respondents to achieve a credible result according to Burke and Gall 1979 as cited by Yeo et al. 2020 with the use of stratified random sampling.
For the instrumentation and validation, this study employed a questionnaire adapted from a research study entitled Financial Literacy and Spending Habits of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy Information System Students, Fernandez et al. 2021, which also used adapted questionnaires from research studies entitled Determinants of Saving Behavior Among the University Students in Malaysia, Thong et al. 2012, and Spending Behavior of Management Students of University of St. Louis Tuguegarao, Cagayan, Abawag et al. 2019. Specifically, the questionnaire had 3 parts. The first part focused on the demographic profile of respondents. The second part was for the measurement of the financial literacy of Angelo Lebardo Loyola Senior High School, in which the researchers requested the second quarter grades of the students in their core subject General Mathematics, as it discusses the basic concept of doing finance. Lastly, the third part focused on the spending habits of the students in terms of academic, food, and personal needs. Next slides are the evaluation and scoring used in the study. The first slide is for the financial literacy of the students, which have different assigned points for weighted mean and statistical treatments such as Kruskal-Wallis. Next is for the spending habits, which have different verbal interpretation for every assigned point, whether if the statement was positive or negative.
Moving on to the data gathering procedure. The researchers conducted a survey via Google Forms for faster data gathering. The researchers finished the data gathering procedure within 1 week. The survey mentioned were adopted from financial literacy and spending habits of Bachelor of Science in Accounting Information Systems students, Fernandez et al. 2021. Before conducting the survey, the researchers first got the permission of the randomly selected respondents through a consent form that was validated by the researcher's advisor and the research coordinator. This consent form assured the confidentiality of the respondents' data. After gaining permission, they proceeded to disseminate the survey forms. After all the 100 students have answered, the data were collected, tallied, analyzed, and interpreted. For the statistical treatment of data, the following statistical tools were used in the study. Weighted mean was used to measure the level of spending habits of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School. Kruskal-Wallis age test was used to measure the statistical difference between the socio-demographic factors of age and weekly allowance to the financial literacy and spending habits of students. Mann-Whitney test was used to measure the significant difference between socio-demographic factor of sex to the financial literacy and spending habits of students. Last, Pearson correlation coefficient was used to determine the correlation between the financial literacy and spending habits of students.
Proceeding to the results and discussion, here are the results derived from the data gathered based on the statement of the problems. The first one is the demographic profile of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School, in which the Table 1 shows the demographic profile of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School in terms of age. The indicator 15 to 17 years old got the highest frequency of 51. Next is the indicator 18 to 20 years old with a frequency of 49. Meanwhile, both the indicator 21 to 20 years old and 24 years old and above got zero frequency. As shown in Table 2, for the demographic profile of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School, in terms of sex, 55 of the respondents were male while 45 were female. The results revealed that the majority of the respondents of the study were male. As shown in Table 3, for the demographic profile of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School in terms of weekly allowance, arranged in ascending order of frequency with their respective indicators, included in the study were 400 pesos to 499 pesos, 11 respondents, 300 pesos to 399 pesos, 17 respondents, 500 pesos and above, 36 respondents, and less than 300 pesos, 36 respondents. The results show that the majority of respondents were either receiving less than 300 pesos or 500 pesos and above for their weekly allowance.
As shown in Table 4, for the financial literacy, which is the second quarter grade in general mathematics of the students in ALJ, a respondent got a grade between 60 to 69%, 4 respondents got 70 to 79%, 47 respondents got 80 to 89, while 48 respondents got a grade between 90 to 100. Moreover, the overall weighted mean was also calculated, which is 3.42 and interpreted as excellent financial literacy. Therefore, the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School have excellent financial literacy. Meanwhile, as shown in Table 8, for the weighted mean ratings of spending habits factors, the indicator food got a weighted mean of 2.85 and was ranked first, interpreted as good spending habits. The indicator personal needs ranked second with a weighted mean of 2.71 and was interpreted as good spending habits. Lastly, the indicator academic purpose ranked third with a weighted mean of 2.53 and is interpreted as good spending habits also. As a result, the overall weighted mean rating of the spending habits of the students in Angelo Leobardo Loyola Senior High School is 2.70, which means good spending habits.
Now, here is the result for the next statement of the problem. Table 9 shows the significant relationship between the variables financial literacy and spending habits and socio-demographic factors of age. The researchers opted to use the Kruskal-Wallis age test to determine the statistical difference. Based on the statistical result, the p-value, which is 0.01871, indicates that the relationship between the first variable, financial literacy, and age is significant. For the second variable, its p-value, which is 0.00001, indicates that the difference between spending habits and age is significant also. Table 10 indicates that there is no significant relationship between both of the mentioned variables and the sex of respondents. The Mann-Whitney-U test was used by the researchers to determine the statistical difference for this socio-demographic factor. According to the statistical results, the first p-value, 0.28462, indicates that the relationship between financial literacy and sex is not significant. The p-value of 0.09492 also indicates that the relationship between spending habits and sex is not significant also. As shown in Table 11, the relationship between the weekly allowance and the respondent's financial literacy is significant with a p-value of 0.00077. Meanwhile, the p-value of 0.9196 indicates that there is no significant relationship between weekly allowance and spending habits. Now, here's the result for the last statement of the problem. It is determined that there is a positive correlation between financial literacy and spending habits of the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School. Results imply that one variable somehow influences the other variable. However, based on the computed p-value of 0.513, which was higher than 0.05 level of significance, it showed that it is not statistically significant.
Now, let's move on to the summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the study.
One demographic profile of the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School, the findings of the study revealed that in terms of age, out of 100 respondents, the age 15 to 17 years old had the highest frequency of 51. In terms of sex, 55 out of 100 respondents were male. Lastly, in terms of weekly allowance, the majority of the respondents were either receiving less than 300 pesos or 500 pesos and above with a frequency of both 36 out of 100. 2. Financial literacy of the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School. Overall, the weighted mean of the general weighted average of the students is 3.42, meaning that there is an excellent financial literacy in the school of Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School. 3. Spending habits of the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School. The spending habits of the students is divided into 3 parts: academic purpose, food, and personal needs. The weighted mean of the spending habits of the students in terms of their academic purpose is 2.53, meaning that students have good spending habits on their academics. Meanwhile, the weighted mean of the spending habits of the students in terms of food is 2.85, meaning that there is still a good spending habit shown by the students. Lastly, the weighted mean of the spending habits of the students in terms of their personal needs is 2.71, meaning that the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School have good spending habits.
The significant difference between the variables in terms of age, based on the statistical result, the p-value, which is 0.01871, indicates that the relationship between financial literacy and age is significant. Meanwhile, the p-value, which is 0.00001, indicates that the difference between spending habits and age is significant. Number 5, the significant difference between the variables in terms of sex. According to the statistical result, the first p-value of 0.28462 indicates that the relationship between financial literacy and sex is not significant. The p-value of 0.09492 also indicates the relationship between spending habits and sex is not significant. Number 6, the significant difference between the variables in terms of weekly allowance. The relationship between the weekly allowance and the respondent's financial literacy is significant with a p-value of 0.00077. Meanwhile, the p-value of 0.9196 indicates that there is no significant difference between weekly allowance and spending habits. Last, number 7, correlation between financial literacy and spending habits. It is determined that there is a positive correlation between financial literacy and spending habits of the students in Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School. Results imply that one variable somehow influences the other. However, based on the computed p-value of 0.513, which was higher than 0.05 level of significance, it showed that it is not statistically significant.
Here are the conclusions from the study. The respondents from Angelo Livardo Loyola Senior High School have distinct demographic profiles with the factors age, sex, and weekly allowance. The students from ALJ have excellent financial literacy and good spending habits. The indicator that states that they compare prices before spending had the highest weighted mean on all spending habits factors. Students spend most of their money in things related to their food. Students spend the least money in their academic purposes. There is a significant difference between financial literacy in terms of age. There is no significant difference between financial literacy in terms of sex. There is a significant difference between financial literacy and weekly allowance, and no significant difference between spending habits and weekly allowance. Last, there is a positive correlation between financial literacy and spending habits of the students in Angelo Livor de Loyola Senior High School. After finishing the study, the following recommendations were made. School should implements. After finishing the study, the following recommendations were made. School should implement programs, quality seminars, and workshops to further improve the spending habits of the students. Future researchers should use a higher sample size to have a better result in terms of the significance of the relationship of financial literacy and spending habits. Last, future researchers may replicate the present study, but finding other materials and instruments such as questionnaires and scoring should be considered. Moving on, here are the references used by the researchers in their study. That will be all from Group 5 from Grade 12 Ayala. Thank you.